It's good to have you here. It is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026, Earth Day Eve. Unified government, closed for regular business tomorrow. Hope you enjoy the day off midweek. We're here for two meetings this evening. We're going to have a brief special called session with, appears to me, three items, including an executive session at the conclusion of our night, and then we have our regularly scheduled agenda-setting session. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Clerk Howard to give us the roll call.
Davenport.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Wright.
Present.
Fisher.
Here.
Johnson. Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Thornton.
Here.
Hamby. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, tonight we're going to have several opportunities for public input. Public input's going to run on essentially the same format for each opportunity. You will have a 3-minute opportunity, and there is a light in front of the clerk, built by one of our former employees back in 1990, fun fact. It will turn green when you begin speaking, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red when your 3 minutes has concluded. And at that point, I will thank you for your time with us because we're going to have to move on to the next speaker. And so now is the time when we have public input for either of the three items that are on the special called session, so the single sheet agenda. So is anyone here to speak to either the Animal Services Contingency Funding item, the Land Bank Authority recommendation, or the executive session that you don't know anything about? So any comers? It's crickets in City Hall tonight. All right, seeing none. I do need a motion from a member of the commission for suspension of rules, given that both of these are items of new business.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Link and a second from Commissioner Fisher for suspension of rules. All in favor of suspension of rules, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, first item is an Animal Services Contingency Funding item. I believe, Attorney Drake, there's an ordinance associated with this. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, sir. Ordinance to amend the FY 2026 operating capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for expenses related to costs in providing animals with medical care, including services and supplies, and animal care maintenance in the Animal Services Department and for other purposes.
All right, thank you, Attorney Drake. I appreciate that. And as I speak to my colleagues in cities around country, it turns out that this is a common area of additional funding need lately, just given the increased need for both some of the medicine as well as some of the professional staffing that goes with running an animal services operation. So this is not very unusual. I'd entertain a motion from a member of the body for this.
Move to approve.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link and a second from Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Link, any remarks?
No, I'm glad to see these animals taken care of. I know times are tough, and we've got lots of pups and kittens out there that need adopting.
Commissioner Taylor, any follow-up?
Yeah, I ditto Commissioner Link. I was sitting beside Doug yesterday in GLC, and that's his safe space. So we want to make sure his safe space stays safe for Doug. He out there. Oh.
Yes. Doug Hansford, Interim Animal Services Director. Other duties as assigned. Anyone else? All right, we've had Attorney Drake read the ordinance. We have a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, second item tonight is recommendation for appointment to the Land Bank Authority. Rick Parker, I need a motion for approval.
So moved to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Taylor. All right, Commissioner Link, any remarks?
I think Rick is the perfect person to serve on that board. We need his expertise.
Commissioner Taylor?
Say the same.
All right, any others? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, thank you, Rick Parker. We very much appreciate your willingness to serve. All right, I do need a motion to enter into an executive session for discussion of real estate acquisition or disposal following the conclusion of our agenda-setting meeting. Do I have such a motion?
So move, Mayor.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Fisher and a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we will be in executive session. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn following the conclusion of the executive session?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Taylor, second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. And we are going to roll right on into our agenda setting session. And so terms of public input are essentially the same as I described earlier, that 3-minute opportunity. There will be an opportunity for public input on our consent agenda, which are currently items 1 through, let me get this right, items 1 through 12. There will be a separate opportunity following presentation regarding each of the recommendations from our Planning Commission. So that is 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then there will be an opportunity for public input on new business, which are items 17 through 26. All right. First let me ask, is there any member of the commission who would like to remove one of the consent agenda items for discussion? Commissioner Link, which item would you like to see?
Number 1, please,
I
just
just
for
say
some.
same thing, number 1.
All right. Any others? Commissioner?
Number 4.
All right. Got number 4 from Commissioner Myers. All right. Any others? All right. So accepting 1 and 4, is there any member of the public who would like to speak to any consent agenda item, which are 2 through 12? Just items 2 through 12 on the agenda in front of you. All right. We're going to go ahead, and I'm going to adjust my seating. We're going to call up Planning Director Bruce Lonnie, and we're going to go through those planning and zoning items.
Busy if you want. Dang, Dexter's got one. I'm happy all I've got is parking. Oh, I do.
If it wasn't so tall.
All right, so order of affairs during this segment of the meeting is that Planning Director Bruce Lonnie will give us a presentation on each project around which the Planning Commission has made a recommendation. We'll have public input, and then we'll have discussion.
All right, so the first zoning item coming to you from the April 2nd Planning Commission meeting is a rezone request at Whit Davis Road. This property is the subject of a rezone for the purpose of redeveloping for multifamily, but age-restricted multifamily. It does align with the general business future land use, so there's no change needed there. But it's a non-binding plan. 52 apartments totaling 80 beds. It would be a 3-4 split on the building, and they are seeking affordable housing tax credits. This gives you an aerial view of the location. This is very close to the Whit Davis intersection with Lexington Road, just south behind Tractor Supply and the fuel station, and across the street from Walmart. Future land use designation is general business. And this shows what the change in zoning would look like if approved from the CN zoning to the RM3. RM3 is not a zone that we have a lot of on the map. It is a 50-bed to the acre density multifamily zone. Here's the view from Whit Davis looking into the site. Some of you will recall when there was a restaurant here back in the day, but it has been a vacant lot for quite a while. This is the site plan that came in. And again, this is a concept plan. This was non-binding. What they're showing is the building slid towards Whit Davis Road with a handful of parking spaces and a connection to the Southeast Clarke Park there down in the lower corner. Planning Commission's recommendation, they found that it was compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. I'm sorry. Thank you. You don't want me to start over, though, do you?
No, you're good.
Okay, all right. All right, then. So compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the surrounding future land use map, zoning map, and the ordinances involved. Just reminding you again, this is a non-binding plan, but it is for age-targeted affordable housing, and they are seeking tax incentives to help with the financing on the project. Sanitary sewer extension issues exist, but a solution is available, and the applicant worked through that with our public utilities staff. So Planning Commission's recommendation is approval with conditions. Those conditions include the following: that no fewer than 35 apartments will be restricted to 60% AMI for the first 30 years of the project. No fewer than 11 apartments will be restricted to 50% AMI for the first 30 years. That connection to the Southeast Clarke Park will be a condition, meaning it has to remain as part of the project. And the final condition is 80% of the total housing units for the property must be occupied by at least one individual who is 55 years of age or older. Up to 20% of the units may be occupied by caregivers and others that include surviving spouses or children of residents who were 55 years of age or older when they died. So this was something that was agreed upon and asked for by the developer. From a property management standpoint, this is something that they feel is important, and they were very comfortable with this being a condition of approval. And that concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you, Director Lonnie. I appreciate that. Is any member of the public here to speak to this item this evening? Good evening. Just provide your name and place of residence.
David Ellison, 2500 Danielsbridge Road, here on behalf of the developer. This was a project for plan to use low-income housing tax credits. Unfortunately, we got the application results from the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. Their bid was unsuccessful, and they did not get the points. And so their application for these low-income housing tax credits in May is no longer competitive. And so we would like to withdraw our application because they are not able to proceed without these tax credits. Thank you.
So just to be clear, you're going to withdraw this ahead of the voting meeting?
I would like to withdraw this at today's meeting and possibly get a vote tonight on Wood Davis Road.
We don't have an opportunity to vote tonight, but we can withdraw prior to the public notice of the following meeting. So we can make that happen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so given that that's the case, I don't know that we need discussion because this is going away. All right. Yes, Commissioner?
I just want to hear again what was said there, because the application wasn't due, but why was it disqualified, just so I understand for future projects?
So the application deadline for the low-income housing tax credits is in May. And as part of that process, there's an opportunity to apply with the Georgia Initiative of Community Housing. Because the acronym is GIC.
Yeah.
Athens participates in that process. And it's my understanding that Athens awarded its points to the Housing Authority. And because this client did not get those points, it believes its opportunity to get tax credits is no longer competitive.
Okay, and that happened between the Planning Commission meeting now, obviously.
I got word this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all, that helps me understand.
Yeah, and just for those watching or folks in the chamber, what used to be somewhat less competitive, low-income housing tax credits, what in the industry they call 4% credit, have become more competitive over time. And so as a result, many of these projects just aren't happening as often. Part of our hope is that the federal government allocates more of those credits nationally that then move down to states and localities. So anyhow, thanks everybody. Yes, Commissioner Culpepper.
So the Housing Authority had already gotten credits, so there wasn't any more credits left, or it just didn't qualify because of the project?
So what Mr. Ellison was referencing is that when you have a GIC committee in your community, they have an opportunity to provide kind of a bonus point. And so that bonus point often kicks projects sort of over the finish line. And since GIC allocated their bonus point to the next phase of North Downtown, this project then didn't get that bonus point, making it uncompetitive.
And that decision was rendered just yesterday morning at the meeting. There was a special called meeting of the GIC committee to render that determination.
Just one question. So can the applicant try again for next year, because it's annual, correct?
That's correct. That's right, Commissioner Davenport. And there are some other vehicles that other developers use for comparable projects. There's a vehicle called New Market Tax Credits that more often than not is a sort of mixed income kind of project, like if there was a cafe or grocery in the ground floor, for example. So hopefully they will return when the time is right. All right, we're going to move on to next item, which is 4190 Lexington Road and some associated addresses.
All right, this request is for 4190 Lexington Road, 150 Pinecone Place, as well as 120 and 140 Mertz Lane. The request is two parts. One is a future land use map change from general business and single-family residential to mixed-density residential across all the subject properties. There is also a zoning map change proposed from commercial general and RS8 to RM1 across all of the subject properties. Here's an aerial view of the property, heavily wooded. It's kind of space left over in between mid-20th century subdivision to the east and apartment development to the west. Future land use is depicted here. You can see the general business is towards the Lexington Road frontage and only goes to that same depth that you have along the corridor. And then single-family residential was the future land use assigned, is the future land use assigned to the rear portion. The request is to take the entire property, all the properties, to mixed-density residential. Similarly, when you look at the zoning, you'll see commercial general zoning at the frontage. You'll see RS8, single-family zoning in the middle, that orange color, and then the lighter tan is RM1. So you see RM1 adjacent to the west, and then presently, the current zoning on over half of the property is RM1. The request is to have all of the property zoned RM1, and the intention of the applicant is to recombine all of the parcels. And then this shows the environmental areas that are on site. You see there's a creek that runs from northwest down to southeast through the site. That area in the back where the creek runs is the part that is already zoned RM1. And so that's part of the motivation for the applicant to seek RM1 zoning over the balance, is to have developable area away from the creek. And then this is the concept plan that was submitted. So this is a non-binding plan, but it is intended to show the development yield that would be possible if the rezone was approved. The intention here in this concept plan, it does show fee simple lots. But again, this is non-binding, so that there is no condition of approval that had this required to be subdivided. So I just want to make that understood. It is a straight rezone request to RM1. This had previously come in under a preliminary review, and the applicant was requesting RM2 zoning. They did amend their application to shift it to the RM1. The difference there is 24 beds per acre with RM2, 16 beds per acre with RM1. So Planning Commission's recommendation, they found it was partially compatible with the comprehensive plan. It did increase the variety of housing types possible in this area and in our market, creates affordable housing. It did not ensure infrastructure or connectivity. There were some questions about that. But it was compatible with future land use map and the zoning map. There were some other zoning-related corrective actions that would need to be addressed during the permitting process, but because this was a non-binding plan, that wasn't that much of an issue for us to dig into at this point. Planning Commission's recommendation was approval of the requested future land use change and approval of the rezone to RM1.
All right, thank you. All right, go ahead and see if anybody's interested in speaking to this, if there's any member of the public here tonight. Good evening. Again, just provide your name and place of residence.
Yes, sir. Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants. We're the civil engineer land planning group on the project. And I just want to reiterate to what Mr. Lonnie mentioned, in that originally when we came in, we thought we would be able to get something a little more dense as RM2. And through the Planning Commission process, we realized that really we probably should drop down a little bit to a less denser project, which is what we have here. And the back roughly 2/3 of the property is already zoned RM1. So we're not asking to change that zoning. All we're trying to do really is clean up the front part of the property so that it all has the same zoning. Most of these houses will be detached, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. They're smaller houses, but they got several bedrooms in them. It's a local builder, local developer that has a good track record of providing these affordable houses. And there will be some duplexes that'll be 3 bedrooms each, but most of the lots will be detached, single-family lots. So just wanted to let you know I'm here. Be glad to try to answer any questions that you have. Obviously, there is a stream on the property. We'll have to go through all the necessary permitting for that. This is just the first step for us, but we know that we've got to get buffer encroachment permits, variances, all those things that go along with plan review, stormwater ponds, all that will be applied to this property when the time comes through plan review. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Is there anyone else here to speak to this tonight? Good evening.
Hi, my name's Ken Portier. I live at 160 Spruce Valley Road, Cedar Creek subdivision, which backs up to this property. The Planning Commission recommendation write-up says that the applicant addressed concerns by the public regarding sanitary sewer capacity and stormwater. What is not said is that this occurred after the public comment period and the public was not able to comment on the sanitary sewer capacity and stormwater solution proposed. Public utilities suggest that the sewer concern can be addressed by placing a holding tank and pump on each of the 45 properties proposed, and that these would be maintained and managed by the owner resident. There are a number of unaddressed questions with this proposal. Has this solution been used anywhere else in Clarke County? The average household generates 60 to 150 gallons of wastewater a day. This suggests that each of the 35 lots would need something like a 300-gallon tank for a 3-day retention. The 10 quadruplex lots proposed would need to hold 1,200 plus gallons of sewage for a 3-day retention. What if the pump stops working? Assume the mean time between failure of one of these pumps is 2,000 hours, which is typical for the kind of sewer pump that we're talking about, an industry average. With 45 pumps, the probability of one failure in 1 year of use, assuming a half hour per day of use, is 98%. It's almost certain that one of these are going to break in a year. Where does the spill go if the pump's not serviced? Who services this? Who pays? What's the track record of homeowners maintaining critical infrastructure? So, for example, look at homeowners who are required to have backflow preventers on their property. What's the compliance on annual inspections? How effective is this program? Will this particular situation be handled similarly? Finally, the sewage solution is posed as a temporary until the county fixes or upgrades the Cedar Creek sewer line, which Public Utility noted has failed in recent years. So how long is temporary? I would posit that temporary often becomes 30 years. So just think about it. And then finally, I argue that the stormwater issue was not addressed. It was simply punted to county staff who would review the proposed final plan and decide if it was protective enough of Cedar Creek headwaters. The public has no say once the decision gets to this stage. And then finally, the ACC Comprehensive Plan talks about opportunities to amend Athens-Clarke County Code to enhance the protection of natural environmental features such as
Thank you, Mr.
topographic-
Fortier. Appreciate your time with us tonight. Is there anyone else here tonight to speak to this proposal? All right, we'll come for a commission discussion, and this property rests in District 1. So I'm going to turn to Commissioner Davenport for any opening thoughts.
All righty, so thank y'all, and thank you for everyone who came out today to speak in support and in opposition. So I do recommend my colleagues watching the April 2nd Planning Commission meeting. I watched it like 5,000 times, so it's worth a watch. There's a resident, I think her name is Meredith Ridgewood. Please take a look. It's only like, she only spoke for, of course, 3 minutes. But just pay attention to what some of the comments that she made. I think she covered some of the concerns. So I did speak with the applicant today, and I appreciate the time. I do just have some grave concerns about the septic, and I'll speak on that in just a minute. But the buffer, I do agree with some of my colleagues when they said that we need to look at our zoning, because like if you have an existing neighborhood and you're building a new neighborhood, that we need to have more than a 25-foot buffer.
75 is what we have.
75 what we have. This one is seeking 25, right? Did I read that wrong? A 75-foot buffer from the back of existing properties.
No, off the creek, it would be off the top of the
Not the
channel.
riparian, but
I'm sorry.
I'm thinking the buffer between the City Creek neighborhood and the, I forget the name of, the neighborhood below it. So especially in the back, those 1, 2, 3, 4 lots in particular, there are existing homes. I think there's 3 homes there. But that's a 25 with a fence and, well, a fence and some vegetation and a couple trees. But like, you know, a 75-foot buffer would at least satisfy some of the residents' concerns in Cedar Creek. But my main concern is just the septic tank. You know, that is an environmentally sensitive area, and can you explain to me as well as others the plans review stage if this is approved? Like what happens next?
So if approved as requested, it would be RM1 property. That would come through our plans review process, and so as it relates to the sanitary sewer and how that's handled, public utility staff would review and only approve if there was a mechanism that met their standards. Same with soil erosion and sedimentation control, because that was also a concern for the creek. There would be standards that are brought to bear that have to be met as part of the design and will be monitored throughout construction. But it is an atypical approach to have a series of holding tanks on lots this small, tied to sewer, but essentially holding and waiting for dry weather flow. That is not something that we have at this scale anywhere else in the community.
So y'all heard that right? Okay. Also, Cooper Road is right across the street, right next door to Tuxton. So GDOT closed that off from going east, taking a left. No, I got it right. Going west, taking a left. So it's blocked off. So this pretty much is gonna be a left, right-in neighborhood. Or people have to probably do a U-turn if they're going towards downtown to get into the neighborhood. Was there any discussion of lining Cooper Road up with, or any potential lining Cooper Road up with the interest of that development? You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's gonna create, with 180 units, that's more than likely gonna be workforce of students. That's gonna be a lot of traffic. And then only having one entrance, one direction to get in, people are gonna do a U-turn. And I know Tuxton, the church across the street, they get upset where people do U-turns already, and they're in their drive in their parking lot. But the main thing is that riparian buffer, the buffer against Cedar Creek, and the main issue is the septic tank. Long story short, 5 years ago, we approved a project across the street from Southeast Clarke Park. Do y'all remember that? It was a 6-4 vote. A lot of people in the East Hampton estates came in, they were upset by it, but we clear-cutted all those trees, and there was a small little swamp-top drainage where a lot of mosquitoes and frogs were playing, but that's where, because of the elevation, that's where the water drained. And I could be wrong, Bruce, call me out if I am wrong, but during the construction of that, that looked like the little swampy area where the drainage was drained out. So I'm assuming all the species that lived in there will probably, no longer exist. But, we clear cutted that whole land, and then we had to came back and ask for a pump station. And those homes were deemed to be, they were set up to be affordable. They have been grading that property for I believe over a year now. I could be wrong, but it looks out there. I drive by there every day. I'm assuming it's about a year and 3 months now. And I doubt those homes are gonna be affordable because with the pump station that we just added, with the grading, I can't see that what they pay for that property and what the homes that they're gonna put there are gonna be affordable. So,
To think about the component elements that you've mentioned, Commissioner Bruce, obviously this is a GDOT right-of-way. Do you know if there's been any conversation about modifying the turning arrangement or signalization at this point?
From a staff standpoint, I don't believe so, but the applicant may be able to respond to that.
I don't know, Mr. Carter, if you've had any conversations with GDOT about the turning movements here?
We have not pursued any permits with GDOT. We fully anticipate it being a right-in, right-out, just knowing the area. Trying to prevent left turns from out of the intersection there, we think is a reasonably good thing to do. But we do not have any GDOT permits or anything like that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And then Bruce obviously addressed the unique nature of the individual holding tanks. One of the things, Commissioner, that this body always has the opportunity to do is create conditions around approval. And so when it comes to the buffer and opportunity that can be taken is to provide a kind of foot depth that may be greater than that required by code around buffering. So just want to make that point.
all right, thank you.
So Commissioner Link.
Yeah, Bruce, can you explain to us the dry weather flow versus wet weather flow of sewer capacity?
I'll give you a planner's answer, not an engineer's answer. So wet weather flow, when you have a sewer system that allows for rainwater to make it into the pipe, you lose capacity during a rain event because it's filled with water from the rain. And so any kind of effluent coming from any property has to fight for the same space that the rainwater is also taking. So in a larger rain event, you have compromised much less flow than you would normally have. In dry weather, we tend not to have issues with our sewer system in I would say, most all of our basins. But the challenge we have is that infiltration of rainwater, making it into a certain section of the sewer system, takes away capacity during a rain event.
So what are the size of these lots drawn on this concept site plan? Do you know?
Actually, no, I don't know off the top of my head, but the applicant would probably know.
Would the applicant be able to, could you give us an idea of what the square footage?
Sure. The typical lot layout there, you can't really read it, but it's 100 feet. A typical lot will be 100 feet deep by 40 to 50 feet wide.
So 42,
So 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lot.
Four to
so
five
it's kind of sub our lowest single family.
RS5 lets you have a
Uh-huh,
5,000.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, my initial concern was why go RM if these are fee simple? But now, wrapping my head around the sewer capacity issue, I mean, I'm reluctant to see fee simple lots with that kind of arrangement, like relying on individual homeowners to maintain that kind of like holding tank pump situation is kind of sketchy. We know the problems we're having with some of our septic tank situations. So that kind of is a concern of mine. Yeah, thank you. I think I'm good.
Anyone else tonight?
I do have a quick, I mean, could we require that the entry be aligned with Cooper Road across the way so we could possibly get a proper intersection there and make it a little safer? Or
The
does that,
GDOT prohibited.
they said no?
Would already, I think it was 4 years ago when they reconfigured that. Sorry, 4 years ago when they reconfigured it, and you can only take a right turn now and a left turn going east onto Cooper Road.
In or out of Cooper Road. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, first just a comment on the use of the word affordable here. Having listened to some of our forums that are going on and for seats that are up for election, I mean, we're not talking about low-income affordable. We're talking about more moderately priced houses, which the market needs. But I think we need to be careful by what we mean by affordable here when we're talking about, like in the last project that was just removed, in comparison to the median income. But I want to follow up on that sewer capacity not available. So the last time we had something like this with the wet weather flow sewer capacity was with the Homewood Hills project, right? But that one had leakage in the pipes. This one, we don't, I mean, where the pipes were leaking as well. So this might be a little bit different, but the implication here, you all wrote a privately designed, owned, and maintained storage facility to retain sanitary sewer on site until off-peak hours is required, or, you know, to serve the development, or alternative solution is deemed acceptable by the PUD director. But the one they heard, it was not individual tanks, it was like group tanks again, which means that, I mean, this is what I have to understand, because if you're talking about like 10 of them, and there's, how many spots were there? 50, 60, how many home spaces? 55, you know, we're talking about like 5 per house or something. Then you have a whole coordination among people to be the upkeep of that. And so that makes me just really wary of this as well, in terms of how long this would be and how it would go on. I'm a little concerned about, you know, allowing something like this, having people come into it, and then 10 years from now, there being problems that really all the details weren't followed through on. So that's my concern. But the other thing about the Pine Cone Place, I mean, that has to be brought up to public standards, including right-of-way and street improvements, and that would be at the expense of the developer. Okay. And are there a bunch of residents on that Pine Cone Place?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes, I'm just going to ask staff to maybe give us an email on the Category C water and sewer availability. I'm going to need a little more learning on those comments, the italic stuff. So there's several bullets here from Public Utilities Department, and I, there might be more that we could have, or maybe I should have a phone call, but it seems like all of us need a little bit more details about that. And then in the transportation, Bruce, this Pine Cone Place consideration that Transportation Public Works have noted, is that in this image? Or is there an image you can show us about the Pine Cone Place part?
Yeah, if you look to the lower edge, where there's a little cul-de-sac that's drawn in, what it's connecting to is Pine Cone Place.
Okay. And is that one of our roads?
It is public, it is substandard,
Okay.
but it is public.
So the point being that if this was approved and that road needs to hook up to it, it needs to hook up to a proper public standards as well.
Correct.
So is it dirt?
No, it's paved.
Okay. But it's just not at the standards of which we,
Width and pavement depth is not what we would typically get these days.
and so,
It's about a lane. I mean, if you look at it, if you drive
right.
out there, it's essentially a single lane.
and then the cost of that upgrade comes from where?
So the developer would have to bring it up to standard to function. The question is, to what standard is that? So during the plans review process, what we would look at is, first and foremost, fire and emergency access, to make it passable and be able to work for that, because that would be their second point of access if there's an emergency.
Okay.
And then secondarily from there would be adequate width to serve the anticipated traffic flow. The challenge for this site is, as everybody's noted, you have kind of restricted access off of Lexington Road. So some other point of connection is likely to carry a good many trips because you're going to want to avoid that Lexington Road connection at times. So it's likely that Pinecone Place would have to be brought up to much more than just a fire and emergency standard to function properly.
And the planning commission said approval?
So the planning commission's approval, and there's one thing, there's one thing I should have mentioned in my overview. The current zoning out there would allow for, I believe it's 175 bedrooms today, as currently zoned. So without changing anything, 175 bedrooms would be possible.
Okay.
This proposal takes it to 181, maybe 180, depending on how things work out with infrastructure. So I think that comparative analysis by the Planning Commission was important to them.
Okay.
You know, a net gain of 5 additional bedrooms across this site was not something that they found to be a worry.
Gotcha. And on our agenda here, the dissolution of.
Yeah,
project.
it's
Can you explain? This is new
dissolution,
terminology
but
to
that's on the next item.
Oh, I jumped
The
down one.
PD, yeah, we'll get to that one. That's a typo. We're
Okay.
working on glossary of terms.
Got Commissioner Thornton, then I'll return to
Oh, I
Commissioner
see,
Link.
yep, I see where I jumped down. Thank you.
Bruce, I have 2 developments in my district, and I believe they both were approved by right because it never came before us for a rezone. But the one near Ryland Park next to Leanne Drive in Linda, did they hook into our septic system?
They have adequate sanitary sewer there. So they are on ACC sanitary sewer.
And that's one of our newest main lines there.
It's in good shape.
So, and I guess my point is, so they were able to do that, and then you can walk right across the street and they're septic.
That's correct.
That's a problem.
Topography.
I don't know about topography, but I'm glad the sewer situation is more than in my district, or it's a concern, because we have not talked about sewer in prior years. So my next question was about so this developer cannot do what they did at Ryland Park? They cannot pay and connect to our sewer system?
It will be a connection to ACC sewer. It's just connecting to a sewer that has limited capacity during rain events. And so these holding tanks would allow for off-peak flow to happen. So these tanks would essentially drain out when the capacity is in the pipe to handle it.
Now, I will say about, I think someone mentioned about who and what maintains. I will say at Creekstone, that owner maintains all the septic tanks. He takes that on himself. So I always need to probably thank him, because we know the septic tanks don't have a real long life. And I think Commissioner Wright and Link addressed the fact that we can't make it mandatory for people to maintain their septic tanks. So those would be my issues too around sewer.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, that Cedar Creek main, the capacity of that is the issue here, correct? It's not a matter of topography, is it?
Well, it's not necessarily just that main. It's the connectivity to that main. The distribution lines to get to that main.
Those are the ones with the capacity issues?
Correct. It's throughout the sub-basin where
Okay.
there's the infiltration issue.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do we have an ETA in our service delivery plan on when those will be getting updated? Have we gotten there yet with our plan?
That That will be, we'll know that as we go into the next meeting, so definitely I'll have them email, we'll get an email out on that, because I don't know, I'm asking that same question, like
Yeah,
where
I
is
mean,
it
that's a
in?
concern. If those are like imminently going to get upgraded, I'm less concerned about
Yeah.
this. But, also note that this whole like underground tank and pumping system, will certainly add costs to this development.
And if you recall, when they did the service delivery plan presentation, part of that included the map that was kind of showing the yellow areas, the red areas where there are capacity issues. So they're consistently chipping away at those, and so I want to find out where this particular area and what the issue is, where that's expected to be
I
addressed, so we
mean,
can give you
I
that.
kind of wonder if this is a project that, if we just let it wait a couple years, that capacity, well, a few years, that capacity would be there, and we could feel better about that. I just hate to see this kind of maintenance necessary, especially for a fee simple project where you have so many different owners. We've seen roads go bad, we've seen septic tanks go bad. When you have those situations, you never know what's going to happen in the future.
I think it's worth making it clear, though, that this is not a binding plan, and they are not bound to subdivide. So
Yeah.
straight rezoning to RM1 is the ask, and that would allow for detached or attached units by right. And, if the developer were to get the rezone request approved and then work through the design solutions, it may be advantageous for them to do something that is shared units in a single structure or fewer structures to make sense out of the sanitary sewer connection.
I like the idea of fee simple lots. I like the idea of inviting homeownership, in these kind of modest, smaller scale lots. And I wish our code, was adaptive to it. Hopefully we can make it that way soon. But yeah, that sewer, the group maintenance of the sewer capacity is worrisome. I wish this was a planned development where we had those questions answered.
All right, some questions that we'll hear some more about for certain. All right, Bruce, we'll head on to the next one.
All right, so the next request is for 1165 Oglethorpe Avenue. It's a two-part request. First part is to dissolve the planned development that is currently on this property that was approved in 2022, and to rezone the property from commercial neighborhood, which is the underlying zoning today, to RM1. So this PD amendment would remove the binding site plan and the binding report that was associated with that 2022 plan development. Future land use would remain traditional neighborhood. It would accommodate both the CN zoning and the RM1, so no change there. The existing PD provides a mix of neighborhood scale commercial apartments and detached units, as well as some senior units were intended. The mix is shown there on the screen. This rezone request, though, would come with a non-binding plan for 22 one-bedroom units and 34 two-bedroom apartments. So traditional neighborhood would remain the future land use, no change. The zoning change that is being requested would go from CN, remove the PD, and then that area shown as CN would become RM1 as part of the second request. Here's an aerial view of the property. Forest Heights neighborhood to the south. Across the street, you have Oglethorpe Elementary and Resource Medical. And neighborhood there to the west and church property to the east. No environmental property features exist on the site. So this is the PD that is in effect today. This is that binding site plan. It shows the series of detached structures. What went through with that PD approval 4 years ago was considerable discussion with the neighborhood on how it should or should not interconnect and interact. A lot of those same concerns were raised at the Planning Commission meeting. So this is the proposed plan. You see a single footprint of a structure, still a single point of connection for vehicles, and no connection proposed for land or drive. The challenge here, though, is that at this density, with this type of structure, there's different emergency vehicle access needs, and so there may have to be a second point of access, and it would likely have to come from land or for safety purposes. But there's a condition of approval, but the Planning Commission forwarded this to you with that addresses that. So this is a side-by-side, just to compare. Existing PD on the left, proposed concept plan on the right. So evaluation, in looking through the application, there wasn't really a strong justification provided for removing the current PD. That was discussed by the Planning Commission with the applicant, and I think there were realities that were expressed about the marketplace today and how the challenges they're facing with building out the PD as it's currently designed. There is more of a mix of housing in that current PD than is what's proposed. The proposed plan is non-binding, and it has a concept that is a single multi-story structure that is atypical for the area, certainly different than what's next door, immediately next door on either side. And this is a common housing form that we have throughout the community, so that was a discussion point with the Planning Commission as well. Partially compatible with the comp plan, though, in that it is infill, it is redevelopment, it's an opportunity to bring some housing into an area. It does just decrease the variety of housing units and prices, but it increases the variety in this immediate area. There is no multifamily in this exact spot. Zoning is viewed as an opportunity for additional housing. These types of requests are considered seriously for that reason, and this proposal is limited to just a single form that, as was noted, is relatively common in our community. It is compatible with the future land use map, but it would result in an RM1 spot zoning. That was part of the evaluation. So Planning Commission's recommendation, they found it partially compatible with the comprehensive plan. It does increase the variety of housing types in this area. It does create affordable housing for sure, and does not ensure infrastructure or connectivity. However, there was discussion, again, with public utilities about how to overcome any kind of public utilities challenges there, and there's some design solutions available. Compatible with future land use, would be compatible with the zoning map if approved. Other zoning ordinance-related issues would have to be addressed during plans review. So this is not a binding plan. So this would be to approve removing the dissolution of the PD. First vote. Second vote would be to consider the rezone to RM1 from commercial neighborhood. And Planning Commission offered these 4 conditions. If it's required, a second driveway would serve as emergency access only and not for public use. 2, households would be limited to 80% AMI for the first 30 years of the development. 3, the age of the residents would be limited to 55 plus for the first 30 years of the development. And then 4, what this condition does is it puts in place, locks down the setbacks that are a part of the proposed concept plan. So it would have a 65-foot front yard setback off of Oglethorpe, 110-foot setback from Breckenridge, those houses to the west, and then 156-foot setback from Landor. And so that's what's shown on that submitted plan. Those were scaled out during the meeting, and those were arrived upon as a condition of approval from the Planning Commission.
All right. Is there any member of the public here to speak to this item tonight? Good evening.
David Ellison here on behalf of the developer, which is a partnership between Piedmont Housing and the Athens Land Trust. And so this project, we're seeking to rezone this from a PD to RM1. We understand the existing PD is a very interesting project, but unfortunately, the interest rate market changed shortly after approval, and the property owner and those developers can never get financing. Unfortunately, the current PD is simply not financially viable and cannot get off the ground. What we're trying to do is propose a project that satisfies many objectives of the comprehensive plan. Specifically, this is affordable housing for seniors. We intend to participate in the inclusionary zoning ordinance, and we will be applying for low-income housing tax credits, which has that May deadline. We believe that this proposal satisfies many of the objectives of the comp plan, and specifically, I want to get through some of these conditions here. So again, we don't want a second driveway, but obviously we want to be good neighbors. The developer, Piedmont Housing, they buy and hold, they don't sell, and it's Athens Land Trust. So we're trying to accommodate the neighbors, and we're fine with it being emergency access only. The second condition, we need to clarify a little bit because that's vague. Households limited to 80% AMI suggests that all of the occupants would be at 80% AMI, or actually most of them, actually all of our housing, all of our occupants would be below that. We're looking at unit matrices at 50, 60, 70% AMI. And so that's one issue that we're going to want to clarify before y'all vote at in May. We understand what Planning Commission was trying to do, but since this is something that will be part of the ordinance, we want to make sure that's clear. Age of residence is 55 plus. This is going to be senior housing. I believe the project that our client did on Bray Street with Athens Land Trust was workforce housing, but this will be senior housing with a covenant that runs with the land. And the purpose of this condition was to essentially allow dual enforcement opportunities between the state with the covenants that run with the land and the county. Now, the setbacks at the Planning Commission, we offer these setbacks because we know there's no binding site plan. But we went to a community meeting last night, and it sounds like some of the neighbors are more concerned about height than setbacks. And so what we're trying to do is figure out, well, can we reduce it from 3 stories to 2 stories? And if so, that may adjust some of the setback requirements. So we're working on that. We may try to come back with the different condition there. We're also want to try to address some of the neighbors' concerns about the landscape buffering. Our current proposal, and I know over my time, just give me one more moment. Our current proposal is for a landscape buffer wall with a 10-foot vegetative buffer. But we're also looking at expanding that vegetative buffer, but keeping that fence, which would be allowed by right.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. And the developers here, if y'all have any questions.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this proposal this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll come for discussion, and this is in District 5, so I'll begin with Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank the developers and the residents from Forest Heights and surrounding area. We met last night to talk about this particular project. And, Mr. Ellison, he did mention some of the concerns of the residents there. Height was one of them. Of course, we need this type of housing in our community. So it's a good project. Now, one of the things that some of the residents was telling me, and I'm asking the developers if he can find, they feel like there's some rock under that particular property. So I'm asking them to do a study, see whether or not if there is any rock, and if they hit rock, what happens with this particular development. Also, one of the other concerns, well, again, what's the height, and I think if we can lower that to 2 stories, people may feel a little bit better about this particular project. But like I say, it's senior housing, it's affordable, it's what we've been talking about, some of the stuff that we need. But again, I want the residents to be happy with this project. Some of them feel it doesn't fit the character of that particular neighborhood. So that was some of the concerns. It is on the bus line from that perspective. It is 1 and 2 bedrooms. And one of the things that we talked about was because it is for 55 and older, young people can't come and stay. I mean, they can't stay. They're going to have a property manager on staff there. Now, one of the other things that we're going to have to deal with, pretty much what happened in Patrick's development, is the sewer. There's not enough capacity there to support that, so they're going to have to do some underground sewer for that particular project. So that's a concern there, especially if there's rock there. So for me, we got to get those things figured out, whether or not there is rock on that particular property, and then then what happened. And then also the tax credits. And I didn't ask this last night, but if you don't get the tax credit, like first development, do you all move on? And it's non-binding. So a lot of stuff is in play here. But again, these are some of the things that our community and some of us on the campaign trail, people been talking about. We need that type of housing. But again, I want to make sure if we do this, that we do it right, and that the neighbors that has to live there, they're going to be comfortable with this particular project. So that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I've got Commissioners Wright and Link.
Bruce, can you go back to the picture that has both the current plan development? Okay. So you said the one on the left was just 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Do y'all remember, was that the one where the young lady came and she was concerned about the wildlife? in this area and it being cleared, and how they had forts and stuff, you know.
Believe that's the case.
Seems like it was much longer than that, but yeah, that, it got prepared, and then it didn't get to happen at all. So I think it's good that this property is getting some new attention, and the housing, I think this was supposed to be medical offices and daycare, the previous
Prior to
iteration,
PD,
yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Coffee shop.
yeah, but I think, in my opinion, the residential fits that area better than the various amenities of this one. But it doesn't matter, it's not happening. The request is to, how did you say that? Dissolve?
Dissolve.
Dissolve, okay. So that other word, I don't have to try to learn it, do I? Okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see senior housing, affordable residential on this lot. I'm okay with the 3 stories. That seems like a reasonable, modest, transitional height, especially since it's primarily fronting Oglethorpe. I would like to see some actual connectivity to the neighborhood. There's this concept of spot zoning that Bruce brought up, but I feel like this is appropriate spot zoning here. I mean, I live in a neighborhood that's mostly single-family homes, but it does have these, pre-zoning, spot-zoned small-scale, modest apartment buildings, and they're, our senior, the current president of our neighborhood association lives in one of them. This is necessary housing, and I think contributes to the diversity of our community. There are plenty of people aging out of some of those homes on Forest Heights. I have folks in my neighborhood who are ready to give up their big old houses and would love to have something like this to be able to move in their neighborhood. So I hope we can move this forward and take care of any concerns that any of the neighbors might have, and bring this community into that neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. I have tons of friends who live there, and I would love to see that kind of diverse housing brought there.
Commissioner Thornton?
Yes, I do like the design. I could understand 3 stories being a little much when you're talking 55 and up. So I kind of get that part. But I did want to reiterate, because Commissioner Fisher said it kind of fast, this project also did not get the LIHTC funding. Even though it's due in May, the vote was yesterday. So I just want to make sure your client knows that LIHTC funding is kind of off the table right now, if they don't know. He's raising his hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Just provide your name for the members of the body.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Josh Thomas, and I'm with Piedmont Housing Group. So we'd be the part owner and developer along with Athens Land Trust in this development. I just want to touch on the last part about so I think the previous developer, the GIC team announced their award yesterday, and that would have given any development 2 points. And their point, so we kind of know where everybody's putting in. We're all in the same business. We had them beat by 2 points, regardless of, if the GIC point didn't even exist. So when they realized they didn't get it, it dropped their score down to where we all kind of know where the scoring is, but we're still up there with it. So that's why we're still moving forward. Okay. Obviously, it would have helped to have the GIC support for the 2 points, but we still think that we've got a fighting chance, so we're keeping going.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I just want to understand, again, this process with these conditions. So we hear the developer is out there, just spoke with us, and I'm assuming there's some kind of memorandum of understanding with the Athens Land Trust, who'd be overseeing this 80% AMI for 30 years and keeping track of the residents and such. But let's say the whole thing, let's say it passes, right? But then they don't get their funding, they don't get it, it all falls apart at that end. And it's left with this new zoning with these conditions. Okay. So what happens then? Someone who comes wants to, so if someone wants to buy this property and build it by right, they're gonna have to follow all these conditions, right?
That's right.
And they'd have to figure out some way to, would they have to, let's say if they did that and they came in there, would they have to prove to you some, like a process for number 2 and 3, how they were gonna do that? Who was gonna keep track of it and
Yes,
such?
I mean, there would be documentation that we would require an annual reporting to make sure it's in compliance.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher and then Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah, let me go back. So, Bruce, to your point though, if this doesn't go through and somebody else buy it, will it still stay 55 and older though? Because it's non-binding. So the project could change, right?
The site plan is non-binding, but those 4 conditions, if they're adopted or if they're reworded, as the applicant said, they might be asking for
Okay.
those conditions ride.
So
and
they'll stay?
They would be in place,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I want to be clear because I don't want, I want the community to understand whatever, if this doesn't go through, or we don't, if we approve the rezoning and they decide, well, we didn't get the tax credit, didn't get the money, we're gonna pull out. Somebody else comes in, those same conditions are there, and they have to stay there, they have to abide by those conditions.
Or they would have to come back to this body and ask for those to be changed.
All right, I've got Commissioners Thornton, Lincoln, Wright with some additional thoughts.
And that was my point, because if someone does come back, like this was a PD. right? Isn't this the one that was?
Correct.
Yeah.
Originally. So you're coming back to ask us to change that, so somebody does have the option, but they still would have to come back to us, or they have to go with the conditions.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so we keep talking about 3 stories, but it's actually the height restriction on RM1 is 30 feet, correct?
With the ability for an additional 10 feet if they meet setbacks, which they were
Okay.
locking in the setbacks.
Okay, so that's what they're doing, they're doing the setback thing. What is the height restriction? I presume Forest Heights is what, RS 12 or 8?
I think it's RS 25.
25? What is the height restriction, what is the height limit for RS 25?
I think it's 30.
I think it's,
Wait a minute, I think it's 25. I think it's 25.
it's taller than that for those
We
big lots.
we can find that out.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
I'm
yep,
just
yep.
curious, because it seems like they're about the same.
Commissioner
Well,
Wright?
that was one of the concerns, Commissioner Link, the
Yeah.
height. Because the people that was on Breckenridge, they was concerned about the 3 stories, people looking right into
Yeah.
their house. So that was some of their concerns.
Is Breckenridge?
It's right
RS?
next door.
It's
Yeah,
30 feet is the height that's in
And
RS
is
25.
Breckenridge RS 25 as well?
I believe it's RS 15, I would have to double check, but it's 30 feet as well.
Okay.
My
so
sense
they're-
is
they all-
that probably the setback means they would need binoculars.
So
if they
with
wanted
the
to look at
setback, they
scenarios.
can go higher than
Right.
30 feet, but without the setback, they could do 30 feet by right if it were an RS. I mean, I'm just kind of making the comparison of what's already being built in the area.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, go ahead. I would say.
Go ahead.
So no, just keep in mind, again, that's why, and I walked that piece of property before. It sits up high right now, and I think, again, some people who've been living there a long time would really think there's rock under there, so I don't know, but if you walk that property, I mean, it's high. So again, I think that was concern of the residents from that perspective, so yeah.
It's so similar to the other one, the category, the C area and the details, all the italic details with the water sewer availability. If we could get just a little more embellishment on the water stub out stuff. The other one had some other things, and help us understand, I don't want to get confused, but that they can use our water and sewer in dry conditions, but for wet conditions, they've got sort of a backup, sort of built-in thing. If you can break that down for us a little bit so we understand, because I'm seeing the same thing here as the other one, as it's possible, but, and if you could just help us understand more of what those differences are, same with the separations and making sure when these are listed, they're issues that are resolvable. because I want to make sure I'm not missing something that is a real concern.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, we'll get some feedback from staff on the geology, the hydrology, and other matters of technical detail. And we'll go ahead and move on to the last of the planning and zoning items tonight, which is 1930 New Jimmy Daniel Road.
Okay. The request for 1930 New Jimmy Daniel Road is also a two-part request. Future land use map change is being requested from employment to mixed-density residential, and a zoning map change from EI, or employment industrial, to RM2. And the intent here is to construct 32 three-bedroom townhome units. So here's our site. New Jimmy Daniel Road is there on the west side of the property. The property backs onto a pond that has served for stormwater and more for this area for a long time. This site is just north of the old Athens Speedway, super old Athens Speedway. So future land use going from employment, which is largely what we have in this area, to mixed density residential. I will note right here that the future land use map that you just adopted is not reflected on the screen because this application came in prior to that adoption, so we're still kind of working with this. But what we're seeing in this part of town is the future land use is migrating over the years. We've had a number of requests out here to go to residential from employment. Jennings Mill Parkway was originally designed to be a parallel route to Atlanta Highway for light industrial and commercial development 25 years ago, and it just hasn't materialized. And instead, we've had residential development. And so that's this trend for today. So light industrial to RM2 is the zoning request. Here's where you see those environmental areas. So there's a little bit of floodplain, a little bit of wetland, most of it off-site. What you have is open water surface area on the site. So here's that context I'm talking about. So this is just south of the Sam's Club. You see at the top of the screen in the middle. To the left, we have housing, fairly dense housing. To the west, to the east, we also have fairly dense housing. And that has been more typical of what is being developed along, especially the southern side of Jennings Mill Parkway, for the last 15 years. This is the concept plan, again, non-binding, but this is just showing how they could get the units on the site and have it work. Planning Commission's recommendation, they found it to be partially compatible with the comp plan. It does create some nodal development. There is a lack of walkability in the area, but there is sidewalk available. Destination walkability, I think, is what the discussion point was. Compatible with future land use map, zoning map, and the ordinance. And there were some concerns, again, regarding sanitary sewers. So that is a common comment. Their recommendation is approval of the future land use change and then approval of the rezone to RM2.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there anyone here to speak to this tonight? Good evening.
Good evening, Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants. Happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. The developer, Brian Elrod, is in attendance tonight as well. We feel like this property is currently zoned is just, for lack of a better word, just not happening right now, and it's been that way for a long time, and it's a good, we feel like a good place for some attached townhomes. And I'll just briefly just speak to the sewer too, and just throw this out there that, yeah, we realize there is the sewer issue. We have been working with the utility department, and as you guys know, they're very capable in terms of their knowledge of how this works, and we're absolutely on board with doing what we need to do. We don't feel like it's any problem at this point in terms of the fix, the solution. They agree. In the packet, there's an email from the utility department saying that conceptually they approve of our methodology. So I just wanted to mention that, and again, be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Is there anyone else here to speak to this tonight? All right, seeing none, it's in District 6, so I'll move to Commissioner Johnson for initial comments.
Thank you. This proposed development, I'll start with the details. I'll then go to what I like about it, and then just if I have a concern, I'll mention that. The details, like Mr. Lonnie said, 32-unit townhomes, and I live in this community and or around this community, and there are there's a lot of land to develop. And so what I like about it is that it expands our housing supply. And the only, I have a couple of concerns, but Mr. Carter actually mentioned one. And the second one is I have a concern, a big concern about the two-way entrance off of New Jimmy Daniel Road. That's a road I travel about 12 times a day back and forth, and I saw the traffic report that stated 59 cars travel on that road on an average per day. The thing is, where it's situated and where that proposed entrance is supposed to be, it's right in a curved corner, type of thing, and when I'm trying to turn on Old Jimmy Daniel Road from New Jimmy Daniel Road, cars are coming around that curve at 65 to 70 miles per hour, and it is tough. And it's also a pass-through from 316 to Atlanta Highway. It's used by a lot of commuters and also a lot of big trucks. So I think it's just difficult, and I'm not an expert or a builder, but just in my layman's mind, it seems unrealistic to have that entrance right there on New Jimmy Daniel Road versus the Jennings Mill Road. And I don't know if that has been discussed or if that was a concern from anyone else, but I live there, and I see that it's just I have to wait sometimes just to turn onto Old Jimmy Daniel Road because the cars are coming so fast. So if you have a subdivision of 34 townhomes that could possibly grow, because I saw in the report the final density number was not yet determined. So right now it's 34. But if it grew, just think about how many cars are trying to turn out. Maybe left to go to 316 or maybe right to go to the Atlanta Highway. That's a challenge. And I don't know if there's any room to make a change, if that would mess up their permitting. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not the expert, but I do know as a person that lives there, I'm an on-the-streets resident expert in that regard. But I would like to thank Mr. Jeff Carter. He sent me a message yesterday that he'd be happy to meet with me after today, and I wanted to read through it first, so we're going to get together and talk about a few things, but if there's anything that you can say, Bruce, to speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Their only frontage is on New Jimmy Daniel, so they don't have frontage on Jennings Mill. So whatever vehicle access they have is going to have to come from New Jimmy Daniel.
Okay.
But the exact placement, again, this isn't a binding plan. So your point's well taken about approaching the curve or coming out of that curve. That central location that's shown on the site plan may not ultimately be the optimal location for vehicle access.
Okay.
And without having a binding plan, it gives staff and the designer latitude to move that
Okay, so
that driveway
flexibility.
to the best spot.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing they have flexibility.
Commissioners Davenport.
Yeah, so, reading the application, the land was subdivided because there's a little piece of parcel above it. And we look at the road, the little piece of parcel above it that was detached from this entire property. Is that going to be developed? Did we approve something? Okay, so if you go back to the former slide, the road at the north side just ends. Is there any potential for new development that road can attach to? A future project that attaches to Jenny Mills?
Yeah, the opportunity for interconnection is there. The topography is not great. It does slope away from New Jimmy Daniel down towards the pond. So that cross slope might be tough to design with, but certainly that alignment that's shown would allow for some amount of access. Now, it depends on what's built to the north. You may be remembering across Jennings Mill. There was a development that came in on the north side of the intersection that you just saw a couple months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the way that's shown there could be an opportunity for another development to tie in for some amount of access.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, this is really for the manager's office, or when we have that discussion with public utilities about sewer, the sewer plan. It seems like it would be really helpful for us to have a sort of primer on these alternate ways of dealing with sewage that we're being presented with and to hear from the experts themselves on that. So that's just a request.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And there are, with these three projects, you've actually been presented three different ways. They're generally the same, but they're actually three different solutions. So I think it would be nice to have them kind of cover at least what they anticipate the possible solutions for those. And again, they're all still viewed as temporary because ideally we're working on addressing these capacity issues. But yes, I think that definitely would be an important thing to have. So.
Commissioner Thorne.
I would like the manager to, the manager is meeting with residents and families of J.J. Harris on May the 4th to talk about sewer and capacity. If we could have those, all the different types of, just for information, I think that would be helpful for our meeting.
Yeah, certainly. And I think in that case, it's even a broader conversation because it may also include on-site treatment systems and what possibilities there are with those because there may not be sewer service to even connect to. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone, and thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to new business. All right, we had a couple of items that moved from consent to discussion. The first of those is the item 1, which is the Tallassee Road Bridge art, which you see in your packet. Great sculptural piece that'll be in the middle of that roundabout, and Commissioner Link asked that this be removed.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly asked for it to be removed to bring attention to it because it's really, really cool. And there's a, you know, the artist is of some renown. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll really put that traffic circle on the map, or that roundabout, excuse me, the roundabout. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, well, since it's my district, I have received some complaints about the structure based on, and the manager and I talked about it the other day, based on the size of the structure. But he assured me that it's not as big as we think it is, so we'll take a look at it, but I have got some complaints about it being there and the size of, and the distraction it could cause for drivers. So again, I live in that district, so I'm just saying what I'm getting. So I just want people to understand that, and we'll take a look at it and see what it look like. But yeah.
Do you want to leave this on discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 4. I think Commissioner Myers asked for a discussion of this.
Yeah, I just, I'm fine with it going back on to consent, but I would just ask the manager to explain this change again so that if anyone is listening, that we can make sure it's clearly understood. The public, this is a change to the administrative setup and management of the Public Safety Civilian Oversight Board, and I just know that there was so much public input went into the establishment of that. I just wanted to be on the record, out loud, what we're doing, and then we can put it back on consent.
You know, probably actually defer to Gavin because it's actually his item, and then if there's questions about kind of post-change, what that means in the manager's office, I'll pick those up at that time.
Okay.
Yes, and those are good questions, Commissioner Myers. And I think what I'd like to reiterate is the fact that you're right. We don't want to diminish or at all change the impact of the public input that went into this ordinance originally, as well as the setup of it. And that is not the intent or action that you're being asked to vote on tonight. Essentially, all that's changing this evening, in 2 weeks, would be who the board has by their side administratively. That is it. As identified in the report, there are existing conflicts that would prevent our office from continuing to administer Peace Cobb and also audit those very same public safety departments. And to avoid that conflict, we've worked with the manager over a period of months to ensure there is a smooth transition. We will stay on for a period of months to ensure that that happens. And again, if anything, I don't see this as any sort of detrimental change. I think it will hopefully not only provide an opportunity for enhancement in the future, but it will also benefit the community in the fact that we will now gain audits going forward as well.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is we have spoken, obviously, with the board. I have then had some individual meetings with board leadership, and they're comfortable with this move. They had some good questions, but once we worked through they're comfortable with those. As far as the kind of staffing arrangement, so one of the assistant managers will provide kind of the support out of the manager's office, and then one of an existing vacant position will actually be recruited specifically to support this and the HRC. So we'll be able to kind of tailor that hire to the support of this effort. That's part of the reason why, as Gavin mentioned, there'll be this fairly long kind of transition, because we want to make sure that everybody's in place and everyone is comfortable with it before we have the formal kind of handoff with it and stuff, so.
Yeah, the question I had, or actually just see what your comment is on this, because I read through it and there's reference to how this is set up in other communities, and that there are many, many communities where this is under the manager's office in there. But just as there's sort of a little conflict with what the auditor could do, there is sort of a conflict with the manager's office as well, since you oversee and support the public safety. And so, how does that work? What
Yeah,
are
I
the
think those-
guardrails that keep
And
that
those
from?
were the questions really from the board members. So
Yeah.
two thoughts that we had with that is, one is the methodology for submitting and processing complaints will be no different than it was under Gavin, so that will remain the same. We actually viewed, and ultimately I think the board members did also, is the reporting structure actually viewing it as a strength, because part of the challenge is with really any of the audits that are done in-house, it's ultimately handed off to management to say, here's the information, and Gavin currently as the monitor can't compel action. I as the manager can. I mean, I can look at those recommendations and say, chief, at least with the police chief and with corrections, they report to me, so I'm able to actually move that forward. So I actually see it as an opportunity to move some things perhaps that might not otherwise be able to be moved. We haven't had that issue, but if you did
Right.
have that issue, we would be able to. The conflict that Gavin speaks to is really his inability to actually conduct audits inside those public safety operations, which I think is definitely something we need to make certain that is available for the audit committee to be able to advance, if that makes sense, going forward. So.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about the guardrail for you, but I guess we are the guardrail for
Correct.
you. So if
Correct,
we
yeah.
felt like you were just ignoring everything that can, and just siding with the one side or the other,
Yeah. Well, and the
we're
good-
the ones who would deal with that.
Yeah, because the piece that you all would be looking for, because ultimately, it's the board that actually determines whether or not a complaint is founded or unfounded. Staff has no role in that except to give them the information that was submitted with the complaint. Where your concern would come in is if for some reason the manager's office was blocking those otherwise appropriate complaints from getting to the Peace Corps. That's where
Or
that piece-
ignoring responses.
Sure,
and
same
so
with like,
forth, right.
same you would have with audit. If you know,
Right.
audits are consistently coming out and there's a manager's response to it, and it says these things should happen, and then every year it comes back to the audit committee and nothing has happened, yeah, that's time to
Right,
talk
right.
with your manager, so
Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
Great, so we'll hold you responsible on that part.
Everybody okay with this going back on consent? All right, 4 is back on consent. Apologies to everybody in the room and out there. I failed to call for public comment on old and new business before discussion of those two items, so I'm going to do that at this point. So is there anyone here who would like to speak to items 1, 4, or 17 through 26 that's on your agenda? If you're here to speak to any of those items, now is that time. All right, quiet in the room, so we're going to move on. So item 17 is our first item of new business, and this, as previously discussed in the work session, is our Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. Does this have to have public input separately at the meeting?
Have a certain number of hearings, so you probably want to leave it on.
Yeah, let's leave this on discussion. Anything else on 17? All right, going to move on to 18. 18 is the Home Action Plan. All right, you heard about this in the work session as well. I think this may also have to
Same
have
thing,
public
yeah.
hearing, so
And-
I think we need to
And I
leave
did
this
on both of these, this item and the previous one, just to make sure that it's clear. Of course, when we first presented the information, we were waiting for HUD's final numbers to come forward. So what you have in this information are the final numbers, so it is accurate at this point.
There's often an adjustment between that advance anticipation in terms of dollar amount and what we get out of HUD. All right, moving on to 19, HOME-ARP funding recommendations. You've seen this already as well? I think same story as with the last two. Yeah, we need to leave this on discussion. All right, moving on to 20, totally different topic. This is calendar year 2026 Residential Traffic Management Program. This includes those items that were in the commission-defined option for last year's budget. So, Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I just want to state for the record that I'll be making some requests that we get some normal town roads on that plan next year. We've got a lot of speeding cut-through traffic that has to do both with the hospital and the med school. Their conditions are changing in that neighborhood, so I'm just putting that out there.
And of course, we have a sort of analysis tool that we use countywide for that. And so that should be going into that filter that provides ultimately that list of priority roads. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, I was just saying, ultimately, the same way we approach street paving and other kinds of things is it'll be going through that analysis rather than just a list of, the list is important because the list is items that will get put into that analysis, but this is an effort to move away from just kind of hand-picked items and actually focusing on where the biggest impact will be realized. The other thing I needed to note on this one is you all may recall that this was actually pulled from an agenda a little while back, and it was because we had no bidders, so we had to go back out, receive the bids. The issue is really associated with the bidders misunderstanding kind of two different projects, and so once they understood that bids are solid, this is a vendor we have used previously for this work. So.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, my question was more that this is, question and comment, that this list that's in here takes care of all the pilot and legacy projects, plus the projects that were in the bid budget CDO last year.
This clears everything that was
Okay,
in those older systems.
So my request, having spent a long time in that residential traffic management program that's supposed to sort of not, sort of use a more analytical objective, is that we actually move forward with that. And if there are problems with that prioritization, let's deal with those. So that's next year. And does this run out all the TSPLOST 2023 money?
That I don't know.
I don't know, but I would remind you that if TSPLOST 26 passes, there is pre-designation that accounts for an allocation in this, and the idea is that it would be brought forward every year.
Right, okay, great. Won't that be good? Okay, thank you.
Everybody okay with this on consent? All right, we're going to move 22 consent. All right, 21 is the public vehicle safety purchase with SPLOST 2020 dollars. Any questions on this? Everybody good with consent on 21? Beautiful. 21's on consent. 22 is the 2026 update to the collective bargaining agreement between Unified Government and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 2795.
I have a question.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, a question on this. Back in January, voted to, implement the pay study that was done, and we used, I guess, some money from this year for that, pay 6 months of that. So I'm assuming that the other part of that for next year was just part of the manager's budget?
Correct. It was,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the stuff that's, I looked at this, the Georgia Firefighters Pension Fund, is that an addition, like, we're gonna pay $55,000 a year for that? And what does that get the firefighters?
There's a share of that is currently paid for by the firefighters, so part of the bargaining was that we would pick up that piece of it in the first year, that is this year, that's able to be absorbed by the current budget. But as the chief notes, I think we shared this with you all before, then in subsequent years, that will have to be added into the budget. As far as what it covers for the firefighters, I don't know that I know the answer to that, and we'll have to find that out.
Well, I would assume it must be a little supplemental pension, otherwise what?
Yeah.
It's a state pension paid by the Georgia Code, and I think it's small, not as-
A small, okay.
I don't think it's a huge amount, but it is something I think that all firefighters in Georgia are eligible for.
So in this other thing that it was like, in this agreement, we are, what are we doing, the collective, we're looking at something to do with the health?
Yeah, so
directing?
part of what they were proposing in their, or part of what was being bargained over was their ability to leave our employee health insurance program and take with it the share that we contribute to that. Of course, part of the challenge with that is what we contribute goes into our risk fund because it's what manages all of our insurance. So if you took those dollars away, those dollars leave along with them. We did not reach an agreement on that. And so what we did reach agreement on was that we've got in the upcoming budget, you remember that we had proposed that there's going to be an assessment, much like we did with the pay study, of our overall benefits package. And at the end of that, then we expect if that information doesn't result in changes that are satisfactory, it will likely become part of the next bargaining discussion again as well. So that's why it's noted in there, because they agreed that they would cease kind of bargaining for that at the point, understanding that there's going to be this additional overall assessment. But certainly their expectation is that they're going to look at any changes that we make and how those relate to what they're trying to accomplish, and then we'll end up probably bargaining over that again. And we didn't really get past that point because we kind of ceased the discussions at that point.
Right, but there would be, some consequences to not only taking our money and putting it in this other, like moving where the money for the firefighters goes, but it could affect the overall financial stability, risk, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the part we
yeah.
would have to consider further. There's a benefit in that there's people that come off of the insurance. There's a consequence, which is if they're generally healthy people coming off of it, we have less people in our insurance and therefore generates that issue. And then there's just the money issue, which is those dollars, which again, don't stay with our individual employees. They go into the risk fund to manage, and so there could be that piece. So yes, if we get into bargaining over this item again, those are exactly the things that we would be looking. And what they'll be looking at are, do the benefits that they receive through our health insurance, are they equivalent to what it is that they think they receive outside? So that'll be part of what they're bargaining on with it. We are also anticipating syncing up the calendar. As you recall, we have to do this bargaining every single year. So we're looking at syncing that up, probably beginning bargaining in November, so that we have ample time for that analysis to get rolled into the budget, much like we were able to do this time, so that we don't run into the scenario we did with the pay increases, where it was kind of a mid-year kind of implementation. And they're definitely on the same page with us on that.
Okay to move this to consent? All right. 22 is on consent. All right, 23 is a report from the GOC regarding employee engagement. Interestingly enough, this was assigned concurrent with our sort of first round of discussion around the firefighters union to ensure that we were wrapping our arms around our entire set of employees. Commissioner Davenport, do you want to make any remarks about this?
So yeah, we have done this before in the past with ACC Gov have done this before in the past in doing an employee study to engage the ACC employees. I understand what their concerns are, and the mayor had asked us to see if we want to update it and ask different questions or to learn more and all that stuff. But I said move it to consent. It's just pretty much doing another employee survey to find out. Because now that we have a new manager, he has a benchmark from the previous one and the new one that will be going out, I believe, this fall. Give our new manager a better foothold on how things are going amongst our employees.
Yeah, I asked if we could, we had money and an anticipation in the budget, so this was a good way to kind of start and do another internal survey. It's a good benchmark because, as I joked, anything they don't like right now isn't my fault. So that way I can make those adjustments. The next one will be my fault, so I want to make sure we get those. We actually will be doing something similar with our community survey. So we'll do, we try to survey the community every few years. We will be doing that after the election because that way the new mayor and any new commission members would have the similar opportunity where they would kind of have a benchmark and say, this is the starting point, basically. So we're trying to stagger those to be able to accomplish that.
Consent.
I agree with the consent part, but Manager, since you brought up the community survey, is that the survey where we learn how people get our information? And there was a time, I've been wanting the water bill to go away, and I see that that's coming. But the inserts seem to be a communication tool. Is this survey going to show that people still are expecting the water bill inserts?
There will be questions around communication.
Yeah.
Most of it is around their satisfaction with services. So typically you'll see questions that gauge how important are individual services and then how do they rate those services, because obviously the ones that are the most important are the ones you want to make certain are meeting your expectations. But it'll be those kinds of questions, but definitely how people receive information, how they would prefer to receive that information will be a part of those questions, most definitely.
So similar, but I got the, if I remember correctly, it was the same for consistency to see, as well as the option to put in.
Yeah, and that was true with the internal survey too. We're trying to, it's good to have some of the same questions so you can kind of monitor trends over time. We are also, though, shifting, internally we're shifting companies, so it gives us a chance to ask some slightly different questions as well. Don't know if that'll be the case when we go to the community survey, but definitely I would anticipate there being some new questions and then many questions that will allow us to gauge how we've improved or not improved over the years.
Okay. And one more question about the internal survey. How is that done? What's the delivery mechanism for that feedback?
There's a couple of different ways. I mean, obviously, there's paper versions for folks that do not have access to email. Otherwise, it'll be done electronically, and it's structured in a way so that it's anonymous. We've actually talked about also complementing it with some focus groups, because one of the struggles that we've heard from before is people will give kind of, they'll check a box, or they'll give one line of an answer, and it's kind of an incomplete answer to act on. So this would give an opportunity for those that might be interested to actually meet as a group and talk about some of those deeper. And so we'll do that at a couple different levels within the organization. But generally, it'll be done via email, electronically, supplement it with paper copies if folks need to be able to access it. The community one historically has been done with phone calls and probably some email, I would assume, with it. The website. Yeah, and a lot of these surveying companies across the country are really struggling with the phone call piece because of not that many people having either not having access to the phone or not answering the phone because of what it's coming from.
Yeah.
So part of what we'll be looking at when we select that firm is how are they proposing to deliver those surveys? What's the best way? Obviously, doing it through the website is always a component of that and would still be as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Commissioner Davenport, you had a follow-up?
Can we make sure that all department heads, when the new survey comes out, that, I think we had I didn't read this thing, like almost a 50% turnout rate or response rate. Just make sure we get that higher for future iterations.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be talking with the directors. We'll be talking directly with the employees. Usually if there's a hesitation, the hesitation comes from the employees that no matter what firewalls you put up about it being anonymous, there's just a distrust as to whether it's actually anonymous. It's really important, though, because it really does help us and it helps you all kind of gauge where is the sentiment of the employees across different areas, and how does pay rank to benefits, rank to working conditions, to the equipment that they have, because it helps us and hopefully helps you all make decisions about policies and budget expenditures and those types of things. So we will continue to impress that upon folks in that time, making sure it's open long enough also that people can fit it into their work schedule and stuff too. We'll do all of those.
Everybody okay with this on consent?
Mm-hmm.
All right. 23 is going to move to consent. All right, 24 was subject of a recent work session. This is regarding the North Downtown Athens Project Phase 3. This master plan revision and funding commitment. Any questions about this? Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I'm happy to see this go on consent. I just want to address the concerns that, this revision coming down in the density a little bit has everything to do with, cost increases, meaning that the parking structure that was originally planned is no longer viable. And not only that, but the Department of Community Affairs requires that we have extensive parking for each unit. So there's really no way around it other than to come down on the number of units and accommodate the parking at a ground level.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, and based on some of our talking at the work session, as this moves forward, is it still the opportunity to have not the commercial, but potential more residential? Is that still
Yes,
of
that is
interest?
that is still being pursued and evaluated and stuff, and yes, is of an interest. If there's at least, if not completely removing it, at least reducing it, certainly. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And,
Commissioner Thornton, and then I have a couple of remarks.
I would like to take it off of consent. One of the things that was presented was that the Housing Authority was going to talk to, just to make sure they're abreast, the Athens Neighborhood Health Center. So I just would like to make sure they've made that point touch.
Outreach.
and then after your comments, Mayor, there's a couple other kind of technical things we want to.
Great. One of the things then that I've spoken about the attorney and the manager about is I want to make sure that even if Phase 3 has to move forward and reduce capacity, which it appears to be the case, I was interested in the prospect, should parking become available, of a slight lift in density for Phase 4, which is the last phase of the Columbia partnership. And I wanted to check with the manager about that prospect, if action on this item by the commission would still leave the door open for that.
Yeah, this revision predominantly deals with the master plan, and it does include Phase 3 and an aspect of Phase 4, but the project that's moving forward for development, with the exception of the demolition of the structures on Phase 4, is really Phase 3. And so, yes, there is still opportunity to talk about what that Phase 4 ultimately ends up being as it works its way through that process.
Because certainly the prospect exists of some future parking structure that maybe is a shared structure immediately adjacent to here. We've got that fairly rectangular parcel on the corner of Doherty and College that it would not surprise me to see used as parking structure in the future. So I want to note that. And then I also wanted to remind everybody that there is a Phase 5 in the master plan that's not connected with Columbia Residential at all, and that's the 5 acres that the Housing Authority has owned since, approximately 1970, and so that's going to be some future opportunity for additional housing as part of the master plan. So, Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I'd also suggest we reach out to our state reps and find out if they can somehow nudge the DCA policy, because in an urban context like this, you really should not need all that much parking. This is directly on multiple transit, access to bike lanes, all of it. We really should not need all that much parking. And I hope that, I know that the state legislature is, proclaiming to try and enable affordable housing more, but this is one thing that could really go a long way, especially in rapidly urbanizing communities like ours, and there are plenty others too, where, if we could have built those extra units without having to build a ginormous parking deck, we could have gotten a lot more people into affordable housing.
Yes.
So we have 9 intergovernmental agreements on this project so far. As you read in Facts and Issues 28, there will be a 10th for Phase 3. This agenda report initially had contemplated that there would be a 10th and an 11th. in discussion with the attorney's office, we don't feel like an intergovernmental agreement is needed right now to accomplish what's in item A. So what you'll see between now and the voting meeting is gray shade edits that change item A from referencing an intergovernmental agreement to just becoming 2 additional action items. So when you see that, it'll still accomplish the exact same things with very much the same words.
Great. And Manager Cowell, anything else? No. Right. Okay, consent okay with this? All right.
I think that Commissioner Thorne had asked that.
Commissioner Thorne, you wanted to keep this off consent to ensure that neighborhood
Yep.
health had a
I'm
conversation
sorry.
with Housing Authority. Yeah, we'll leave it off consent. Thank you for reminding me of that. 25 is an LRC report about a noise ordinance modification with the prospect of a future one too. Commissioner Myers, I'll turn to you.
Yes, well, this is, after many months, this is pretty clear cut, though. Basically, we were addressing noise issues in the downtown area. And right now, what we are putting forth is a text amendment that would extend the noise restrictions that we have in place already to mixed-density residential zoning districts. So a couple of months ago, we did that to the AR, the agricultural zones, with some changes in distances. But we've done that for the RM zones, which I think makes sense for downtown, but it would be applicable anywhere so that we're treating neighborhoods the same. We also, with the help from the solicitor, who was very helpful, special thanks to Will Fleener for that, made some changes to the fines so that we leave the first offense up to the judge who's working with it, but a second offense goes to 600 and a third to 1,000 to hopefully make this a little bit more, less friendly, a bigger dip into the party fund. And the last thing, we're also requesting staff to do some preliminary data gathering of budgetary implications on decibel levels and on tools to measure decibel levels, and ask the mayor to reassign the topic to committee in a year's time to sort of see how these updates have done, see if it deals with some of the problems we've had, and then if we want to go into the decibels, we can go there again. We spent a lot of time talking about decibels, but there's a lot of legal constraints there that make it difficult or challenging, or even make it more, ultimately, we got to think about what we're doing and what we're trying to get done and how effective it is. And perhaps these fines will make the biggest difference. Anyway, that's what the report is from the LRC.
Thanks for carrying the baton over the finish line,
Yeah.
Commissioner. In succession, I have Commissioners Wright, Lincoln, Davenport.
Yeah, we have had this assignment, but we did do the agricultural first, and then we went to the in-town, and so that it's multi-family units can also have peace and quiet or report, not just single-family dwellings. And in that year review, we plan to understand if things have improved. Another thing the solicitor did, and it was great because we had so many staff and input at our meetings, is that he made it court only. So what we have seen is there's not that face-to-face or the discussion or possibly the ability that now happens with the judge looking at it, that 4 citations in one day can have a little discussion about the importance of adhering to the first one type thing. So, so instead of it just pay the fine and not have that opportunity for discussion with the judge, and but then also leaving the first offense as a teaching moment and adherence being available. It's the repeats and the somewhat not giving the respect to the ordinance. And so that, I think, has already been so noted out in the community, the court-only version of this. So we'll see what updates come, and hopefully in a year or so when we revisit it, we won't have as many fences.
As soon as the first Tuesday in May, this could be on the books. So, Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I am glad to see those RM communities added to this. So this now means that the Hancock corridor and the east end of Cobham and much of East Athens that did not fall under the noise ordinance, they can now be happy to call when they hear the parties. So I want to encourage I'll be reaching out to my constituents in those zones and letting them know. I do have some questions about the discussion around the downtown battling cafe speakers and whatever. Can somebody from the committee kind of like enlighten me to that discussion and why it was
Commissioner
kind of
Myers, I know
abandoned?
there was a lot of discussion about
There's a
this.
lot of discussion on this, and perhaps, Commissioner Wright will want to add on to this because it's her district. I think we did not find a tool in our bag of tools to address that. I mean, part of the issue with the sound right now, it's the audible sound. And so you have to, when there's a lot of sound coming from different places, it's hard to identify it as such. I think there was discussion among, we had a lot of staff and people from the downtown community there, that this might be a place where a civil action might address the situation. But we could not find a tool in our municipal tool bag that would work from the police perspective and from the solicitor's perspective as well. And let me ask Commissioner Wright if she'll add on to that.
Yeah, I think another thing, we did study a great deal, and we had David Lynn from the Downtown Development Authority on site so that we could discuss the ability to enjoy your outside cafe without the loud music of another entity. But similar to leaf blowers and the other things, when we studied the noise ordinance before, I think it's at the state level or what, there's a level of you cannot limit, something about the noise when it's in the course of business cannot be stifled or fined or, am I saying that right?
It makes it more difficult if
Yeah.
it's, that's
If it's a
where
course
the-
of business.
Yeah, in the course of business.
Versus an entity that might have a special event permit to have a party, but they still have to be the noise ordinance because that special event or that party that might be happening from a group, they have permission to, but they don't have permission to ignore the noise ordinance. And so in the downtown course of business, I had hoped that a restaurant's course of business didn't include loud music, but it apparently does. And the other part that I wanted to have addressed was megaphones and amplified music on our right-of-way. And again, the First Amendment, it ends up being stifling to the content by adjusting or trying to put our idea of volume to someone's free expression of their choice to project. That was another big
So-
part of it as well.
So we can't limit speakers or amplified noise in the public right of way without, I mean, we issue special permits all the time,
I
but.
think you can offer a lot more guidance than I can, because I know she was very involved in the legal research, and also Will Cleaner was. But ultimately, in an urban area like downtown, you walk out of here tonight, you may hear music coming across the street that nobody's complaining about. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it for all, is what it comes down to. And that will affect things that you may not want to affect. Because I know the complaints were coming from primary one location, a lot of them. And in fact, that location has another location right behind it that has live karaoke, which is, so it gets into, if you're gonna shut it down, you gotta treat everybody the same.
So if you could hear it from the RM or RS neighborhood on Pulaski Street or down Hancock, would then it be in violation?
Again, I don't want to get into particulars because it just gets complicated, but if you talk to Courtney, she can explain to you
Yeah.
completely. And I will tell you, these issues were discussed ad nauseum in the committee.
I might need to watch those
I'll,
episodes.
And we could get some of the documentation, some of the memos that came from Courtney's research could
Yeah.
be sent to
Yes,
everybody.
yeah, there's
And
sure a lot of
then,
memos.
but
I'd
the
be
other thing
interested in
is,
seeing those.
when it's a business, it's in their course of business. It's,
I don't know
that's
what's
part of it as well.
selling tacos
I will
has
say
to
too,
do
you know, the
with
solicitor's
licensing.
input was vital because he has to be willing to prosecute it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll note that subsequent to committee's work, I was fortunate enough to be at a conference that included a sort of a mixer discussion of these questions of sound and venues in an urban context. And I was able to have a lengthy discussion with the longtime employee of the city of Austin who regulated this work through a permitting process. And so there had been a request to assign some future tasks to the committee. And so I'll be integrating some of what I learned there kind of in a committee assignment where I hope to use some of what Courtney developed and some of what I learned in Austin. Because I think it continues to be an issue, but I do think we need to think comprehensively, you know, rather than isolating it to sort of today's burn our saddle, thinking a little bit more broadly about, okay, what are the issues that we may face in a different location in the future. So
Okay.
there'll be some more work on this because I think everybody recognizes that it's an area of ongoing concern. Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, I'm just happy that LRC got something out, GLC.
And yours was passed with no action.
I'm just kidding. My question is, so, this is the RM. Thank y'all for this because this is really going to benefit a lot of people in the more densified neighborhood. But when it comes to, my question is, like, do we, for some of the troublemakers or whatever, do we notify them? Because this is going to be a huge change considering we're going to vote on it in May and it's going to be summer months. And
So maybe we can work with the communication shop to
Yeah.
broadcast this and, certainly some of the student-connected organizations, whether it's Interfraternity Council or others, just to make sure that this is well understood.
Okay, thank you.
Can we put this on consent?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so 25 is going to go on consent. All right, last item before we move to executive session is a recommendation from the Charter Compensation Ad Hoc Committee. This was born out of both action that actually the commission took about 4 years ago and the long in the tooth era of my time as mayor. And so following on an earlier action to enhance the compensation for commissioners and my desire at the time to not see the same for the mayor while I was in office, but recognizing that we really need to come more in line with our fellow unified governments in the state, like Columbus, Muskogee, Augusta, Richmond, and Macon-Bibb. Pulled together the three prior mayors pro tem, Commissioner Thornton, Commissioner Myers, and former Commissioner Edwards. And so there's a four-prong recommendation that would necessitate moving through local legislation within the General Assembly that would ultimately, in the future, designate the mayor's position as full-time in the charter, establish the mayor's base compensation as 3 times that of the commission, which it was in the early 2000s, provide the mayor pro tem with a $5,000 annual supplement, and then allow the mayor and commissioners the option to voluntarily participate in the management pension program. So this was the recommendation unanimously from the committee, and certainly happy to answer any questions about it.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Can you tell us who was on the committee?
Absolutely. It was the 3 prior mayors pro tem, so Commissioner Thornton, Commissioner Myers, former Commissioner Edwards, and myself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that this is all, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So none of these changes are going into effect. It's a recommendation basically to further explore it at a time, and how to do that at a time when it is appropriate to do that. So we are not voting on whether or not to make these changes.
Right, so the order of events would be, commission would accept this.
Go to the state.
This would be handed to our local delegation to the General Assembly, who we would ask to craft a piece of local legislation in the coming legislative session or the next couple potentially. And then the actual on-the-ground changes as felt by electeds would happen in 2031.
Yeah.
But it actually, I mean, it doesn't, it also just recommends that the commission revisit this, so before that even happens, with the attorney's office drafting this, so with the work of the attorney. So it's not gonna go, it's not gonna happen without us coming back to us.
Yeah. So what, one step for elected kind, one leap for humanity?
I have a comment.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So I've been on this committee on this commission since January 7th last year, and I've heard at least 6 or 7 people since January that served with me and 3 before me serving, asking for a review of the charter. And to pick and choose what we contact our local delegation to evaluate and make a decision about, I think is disingenuous, and I think it's inappropriate. I remember you interrupted me last month when I was asking about something related to the charter. Someone on this side said, well, he's the mayor, he can do what he wants. And then you proceeded to tell me, well, to make any changes to the charter, it's a very laborious process. It takes this and it takes that. But you found a way to do it for this, and I know you're not going to benefit from it. But what I'm getting to my colleagues who always talk about problems and disenchantment with the charter, we have 4 people that were willing to do it, including the mayor, and nobody's doing it for the things that really matter, that protect us, that support us, and that strengthen us. I just wanted to say that. Just completely disappointed, not in the decision, but in how you were able to put it on the agenda and everybody was okay with it, but you didn't also remember your own statement that you made to me that it's a laborious, long, lengthy process that involves the delegation. It's the same process.
Just to note that by practice, there's a charter review commission that happens every decade, and so there will be a comprehensive forthcoming charter review.
As commissioners, we have the right to actually come together if we really believe what we said we will believe. We have the right to form in a group of 6 or more to talk about it. No 6 people at not one singular time have come together to say, I want to be one of the 6 so we can put it on the agenda so we can actually have a discussion. So we can do it more frequently than once every 10 years. That's done by the Oversight
That's right.
Committee.
Any 5 commissioners can form a special called session. That's exactly right. Commissioner Thornton.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit. I really thought that when we met, we were talking primarily about the mayor's pay primarily. I'll just be transparent. And it does not impact Kelly at all. So that was the intent, but we found out that it was too late in the game as far as talking about that. Now, I am the first and will always can say that we do not need to wait no 10 years to review the charter. I've talked to several of you about reviewing the charter. Now, if anybody wants to sign, 6 people who want to sign to say, let's review it, I'm ready, because that charter is it's so outdated. And even when we did the last review, Mayor, it was during COVID. And half the folk fell off the committee. We didn't even really get a in-depth recommendation from the charter. I would be the first one to sign to review the charter. I am not picking and choosing what we do, but this I thought had a time span, which later on I found that it didn't. I mean, we had passed it. So I just want to be clear about that and follow up with Commissioner Johnson's point. I'm ready to review the charter.
As a kind of functional question, what I would note is if there are commissioners who are collectively interested in a charter review, that you create some framework, basically some bullet points to say we want to look at these elements charter's a big and fairly unwieldy document, and so, if you have a scope and a focus, that would help everybody involved.
Well, Kelly, sorry, Mayor, when we take our oath, we swear to the charter, and half of us, and I include myself, really don't know all the details until something comes up, and then we say, oh, we can't do that because the charter says that. So we do need to review our charter if that's what we're going to take our oath on, and it should be mandatory. I really do think that we should review it, and whatever we need to do, I'd be glad to support it.
The one-time classroom teacher in me, if he had his druthers, would have you take a quiz on it before you could register to qualify for office.
That wouldn't be too bad. Probably send some people home, including me.
Commissioner Lincoln Myers.
Yeah, that 10-year overview process did get interrupted by COVID. But I do remember some clear recommendations coming out of it, particularly as it pertained to the auditor's office. And we followed up on that, and we've, reorganized our auditor's office, and we have a proper audit committee with, citizen experts, and the auditor's office is getting a tremendous amount of work done. So there has been something productive, and it was a way overdue reorganization. So that did come out of that, pretty troubled overview commission, during COVID times.
Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I'm just opening up the charter here, and there's 9 sections with many, many subsections in here. And since the question comes up, and it's brought up a lot, I'm wondering if it would help me, maybe it's going to be a really short memo, to ask the attorney's office just what would be involved in what would be the process that the commission would use to review the chart? Is there an, I can read it again, but from your legal perspective as well, how we would go about the process here of, would you give us any recommendations on what the legal requirements are to change the charter? Just like there are things where you can, have a referendum for the whole community, or it could go, something goes to the state, or can you just give us a short executive summary of the powers that we have? And of course, if there are issues that in these many sections that we want to address, that would be helpful to know as well, because I hear discussion of the charter, and I know there's discussion of the sewers, and this follow-through. But I don't know if that's a question of changing the charter or following through on what's in the charter. So it would be helpful too for me if any of my colleagues, have more clarification about what aspect of the charter. Is it following up on the charter, following through, or are there specific sections that want to be changed? So I guess I would ask that of my colleagues, but from the attorney's office, if there's something specific guidance you could give us about how the charter gets changed.
I have prepared a memo on that.
Yeah, just not too long.
She's asking for a memo, but not too lengthy a memo.
Yeah, I don't want you to.
Yeah, don't write it as long as the charter.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I want to say 3 points. Just like the mayor, when you created this ad hoc, very short-term committee, which there are dozens of for various reasons, you could have actually asked us if we have anything to also, that we would want on the agenda to also review, instead of making it so specific that would only benefit one singular thing. That, in the spirit of collegiality, it is upon you to include us and be a partner with us. And you could have included us instead of just making it about one topic. And to Commissioner Link, you are absolutely right. That was something that came out of the 2020 Overview Committee. I will remind you, however, there was a conversation, several conversations in 2018 and throughout 2019 where you constantly talked about being unhappy about the charter. You constantly made statements about the charter being changed. It needed to be changed. And you specifically stated because the Commissioner Wright has the ability to just go up into Kelly Gertz's office and tell him whatever she wants to do, and he will do it. There was just no power. This is a private conversation, but what I'm here for is just, I'm serious. I'm tired of the non-talkers. I'm telling the truth. I have it documented. And what I'm saying is, people say what they want all the time, but for 2 whole years while you were the audit committee chair, this is what you said. Things can't happen because, and you know, the audit committee, the overview committee did make a great decision, make a great choice, had a great outcome. But don't sit here and say, not one person sit here and say that, yeah, I'll sign the list, I'll sign the list. This is the time here, right, and now. The thing is, you said it, it was said, it has been said by, I've spoken in 2000, since I've been in office, I've spoken to 8 out of 10 of you. 2, I don't really see you often, I don't speak with you. But at least 8 people have shared with me on a one-on-one conversation that they think the charter needs to be reviewed. If you are, especially for the non-speakers, tonight, if you are serious, let's just stop talking about it and make it happen. And if you're not serious, stop talking about it.
Got Commissioner Thornton, then we're going to move to executive session.
All right, I'm gonna say this. Let me make sure I say it right. Commissioner Johnson, if you take the lead and ask for signatures to have this put on the agenda, I'll be the first one to sign it.
I will, thank you, I sure will.
All right, we have a brief executive session item that should not take very long. All right, it's the end of our agenda setting session. We don't have public input at the end of the agenda setting session. We do not. Only at the end of the voting meetings.
Voting meeting.
That's the first Tuesday of the month.
Oh, wow.
First Tuesday of each month. Yep. All right. All right. We're going to go ahead and enter executive session. Just going to take a couple minutes. Thanks, everybody.